Just like a real oven, your toaster oven will get a little greasy and grimy over time. So let me show you the best way to get it nice and clean. Now the first thing I like to do is just take out all the removable parts. Usually the rack on the inside here will come right out nice and easy, and this one's pretty grimy. Now the reason I like to take all this stuff out is because I like to soak it. When you have really greasy items, it's best to give it some good dwell time, which essentially means just leave it soaked so the soap can do its job and break down the grease and grime. That way you don't have to scrub as much. Now, some toasters have a tray on the inside. This one actually comes out from the front. Now, usually the bottom tray will have tons of little crispy bits like this, just burnt food. So before I add this to the soaking bin, what I like to do is just bring this over to the garbage can and get rid of that first layer. Now, when it comes to the inside, you're also gonna find all sorts of crumbs and burnt bits like this. So it's best to remove those before we spray cleaners down. That way the cleaner can get to all the baked on grease and grime. So to do this, I like to just use either a vacuum cleaner or I'll just bring it outside, give it a good shake and brush. Now, since this is called a toaster oven, your first thought might be, well, I'm just gonna grab some oven cleaner, spray everything down and be good to go. Now, the caution with that is oven cleaner can actually be too strong and eat away at the coating that's many times on all the metal inside your toaster oven. So I don't suggest to use oven cleaner, but instead what I like to use is either just some Dawn and Dawn Power Wash, or what you can do is use baking soda and vinegar. Now, something I like to always mention is that baking soda and vinegar do great at cleaning. However, you should never mix them together. The reason being is that reaction looks really cool and it's bubbling up and you think, wow, the cleaning power is amazing. However, that reaction just happens and then you're left with salt water. And unfortunately, that doesn't clean very well. Now, if you do decide to use the baking soda and vinegar method, what I suggest is to use them in steps. First, come through with just a little bit of baking soda and water and mix that into a paste. This works great at scrubbing away the baked on grease and grime. Then once everything's nice and scrubbed up, rinse the surface, get rid of the baking soda. Then I come through with just the vinegar, spray that down, and give everything a good scrub and wipe down too. Because this one is so greasy and grimy, I'm gonna start with the Dawn to see how that does, and then I'll jump into the baking soda and vinegar if I need it. A question I get a lot, especially if you're an international viewer, is do I have to use Dawn or I can't get my hands on Dawn? And that's okay, you don't have to use this. I just personally love it. I think it does an amazing job. Essentially for these types of jobs, and anytime I mention Dawn, is you're looking for a degreaser. So Dawn is a great just kitchen degreaser, so anything that has degreasing qualities should work. To soak the racks and trays, I first like to fill up a bin with some hot water and then grab my dish soap and add about a tablespoon or so, and we're just gonna let these soak and kind of do their thing while we clean the inside. For that, the process is pretty simple and by no means groundbreaking. We're just gonna spray down the soap, let that sit for a little bit. Again, we want that nice dwell time so the soap can kind of do its work and break down the grease and grime. Then I like to come through and give everything a good scrub. For these, I usually like to recommend a non-scratch scrub sponge just because we don't want to damage anything on the inside or create scratches that could possibly rust in the future. Then I come through with just a damp towel and give everything a good rinse. Now, I will say anytime you're cleaning a toaster oven or your oven, really anything that's greasy, usually you're gonna have to clean it a few times and kind of get through that grease and grime layer by layer. So don't feel discouraged if it doesn't come out perfect the first time, just reapply the cleaner and start the process again. Now, most likely you're gonna find a few areas where the grease is just not lifting and scrubbing away, like you'll notice this spot here and also down here, kind of on this area. This is really bad. So to cut through that, what I suggest to use is some fine steel wool. So this is actually grade 00000, 4 zeros, I think I got that right. And this does a good job to kind of scrub away that baked on grease there as needed. I don't like to start with this just because, honestly, sometimes you don't need to start with it just because it might not be as bad as this one here. But make sure the surface is always nice and lubricated before you start scrubbing because you don't want to cause it to scratch. And this will get rid of all that kind of really nasty stuff. Now you'll notice here kind of by the element, there's a little bit of charred on, kind of baked on grease. I tried the best I could to get that, and you're probably gonna have some of that too. I just didn't wanna get too aggressive by the heating element and damage it and break it. So for those areas, I just get them the best I can. So now that the inside is nice and clean, the next step is to clean the outside of the unit. Now, yours at home might be just painted or plastic or stainless steel like this one here. So what I first like to do is just come through to try to remove any stickiness or greasiness on the outside. So for that, I'll just use a little bit of the Dawn Power Wash, spray it down. You could even use the vinegar too if you wanna try that. Scrub it in, then give everything a good rinse. Now, another question I get asked all the time about my cleaning videos is where do you find stuff to clean? And this one I actually found on Facebook Marketplace. And it was funny because the lady did not have a picture of the inside. And obviously I wanted to know if it was really greasy and dirty because then I would buy it to clean it for this video. Anyways, so I messaged her and I'm like, hey, could you send me a picture of the inside? And you could tell that she didn't really want to. She's a little hesitant. I think she thought that I would not buy it because it was so dirty. Little did she know that's exactly what I was looking for. So when she sent me the picture, I was like, I'll take it. I'll be over in 10 minutes. And I think she was a little surprised. Now, because this one is stainless steel, I really want to make it shine. So I'm also going to come through with just a little bit of the Barkeeper's Friend Soft Cleanser, scrub that in, give it a rinse, and polish with just a dry, clean microfiber cloth. And this thing should be looking amazing. Whew, I need sunglasses for that shine. The only things left to scrub here are the racks and trays, and they've been soaking for a while, so I hope they clean up pretty quick and easy. Now, for the rack here, what I like to do is just grab the steel wool, just give them a quick scrub, and oh yeah, that's coming off super, super easy. You can tell I scrubbed right there, still greasy right here. So we're gonna give these a quick scrub and rinse, and then we'll put them back in. So for the bottom tray here, it's probably gonna take quite a bit of scrubbing. We'll have to attack it the same way that we clean the inside. Scrub it down real good, give it a rinse, then reapply some soap and kind of clean it layer by layer. But stick with it, you'll definitely get it clean in time. It's just, this is usually the greasiest part because all the food likes to drip onto here. Now, a pro tip that I like to do with my toaster oven is just add some aluminum foil to the bottom. That way that catches all the mess and you can just crumple that up, throw it away, put a new sheet down, and you don't have to scrub this as much. So after about 10 to 15 minutes of scrubbing, the tray and rack look way better than where we started, especially the tray here. I gotta say, this cleaned up really well. Now, is it perfect? No. Unfortunately, because there was so much grease and grime buildup on here that just kind of got baked on, it did kind of tarnish the metal a little bit, but compared to where we started from, I think it looks much better. Now, to prevent it from getting to this point, what I always suggest is just clean it more often. If you do start to see grease and grime develop there, just pop it out, give it a quick rinse and scrub so it doesn't quite get this bad. And again, like I mentioned before, if you put a little bit of aluminum foil on there to kind of prevent that, create the barrier there, that's gonna help a ton too. So now that everything's nice and clean, it's time to reassemble the toaster oven here. I'm just gonna slide the bottom tray and the rack in place. Now, I do suggest once you get everything back together to just run your toaster oven for about 15 minutes. Just that way you burn off anything that could be left behind. Hopefully you came through and rinsed everything really well with just that damp cloth like I mentioned, but I just like to run it that way, I'm 100% sure. And just like that, this toaster oven is nice and clean. Now, if you found this video helpful, or if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel and smash that like button. I also want to give a shout out to the Clean Squad members over on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. And if you want to learn more about that and join us over there, check the link down in the description below. And as always, I'll see you on the next clean.